mean, I know that in 7 months you didn't plan on this, but you never thought of, I didn't sign up for this. This is not what I wanted. How'd your attitude go with all that? You addressed it a little bit.
Yeah, I've not regretted coming here, not one day. I love it here. The people here have treated me great, and so when I was evaluating the job, my real concern was Heather and I were both born in Oklahoma. We'd been living in Texas. We were within 3 hours of all of our family there. And so I was like, how is my family going to adjust to making the move? They've done outstanding. The job is the job. And when I coached, I used to always say, hey, you always have that one game a year that no matter what you do as a coach, you're going to win it because the shots are falling, your guys are just in the right place to intercept the pass, and and you're going to have that one game a year. No matter what you do as a coach, you're going to lose it because it's the other team's game of the year where everything falls their way. And so, like, we've had a lot of turmoil these first few months, but I also understand it's not because anything's wrong with WVU. This is a great job, great fan passion. We have resources. We have a great institution. We command the presence of the state, and I'm excited in the new Big 12 about where we're positioned, our ability to compete. And I love the people here. I love the culture here, and I'm very thankful and grateful to have the job and to be here. And last thing I'll say is when I got the job at North Texas, one of our donors, a guy named Don Walsworth, from Missouri, where I'd been deputy, sent me a crystal frog. And so I called him. I was like, thanks, I guess. Like, I don't know, what this is about, because I thought, well, maybe he thinks I went to TCU. And he goes, you know what that means, don't you? And I said, no. He said, when you're a leader, you can't look backwards. And what can a frog not do? Can't hop backwards. It can only go forwards. And so I've carried that frog with me. Now, my daughter, when she was about 4, broke one of the legs off. So now it's a 3-legged frog. I don't know how that changed its hopping, but it's in my office now, and I don't look back at things like that. I try to only look ahead and look forward. And but I will tell you that I'm grateful to be here and have not had one day of regret. Now, I've had days that were difficult days on the job, but that comes with jobs like this. If you're going to be in a leadership position, you got to be prepared for those.
Wren, you said you spoke with Bob Huggins on Sunday. Just to be clear, that was a Sunday after he resigned?
Yes.
Did you reach out to him, or did he reach out to you? How did that work?
I believe that I reached out to him, but that's such a blur I don't remember exactly. But he was over at his office, and I just said, hey, I'd like to come over and visit with you for a little bit. And he and I huddled up for a few minutes just and shared a few moments. I mean, Saturday was a really hard day. And so, that Sunday was a time for he and I to kind of decompress and we gave each other a hug and got a chance to spend a few moments together.
Sort of along those lines, have you or anyone at the university in any way, shape, or form said to Coach, hey, we kind of just need you maybe to stay away for a year or something?
No, I don't think I would ever say, hey, you need to stay away. I mean, I think when you have somebody like that who the fans love and who's passion, that's not the right course of action. My only encouragement to him was to get healthy. And I think with Josh being our interim coach, I know that he cares a lot for Josh. And so he won't want to do anything but support Josh. And part of supporting Josh is letting Josh, lead and coach and not feel like there's this legend looking over your shoulder. And so I don't think that anybody will have to have a conversation with him about that. He's coached a long time and he understands that, and he wants Josh to be successful. But no, there hasn't been any, nor would there be any request for me to, for any kind of period like that.
And when you were talking to some of the coaches, some of the roadblocks, the timing, What was it about the timing that made it such a huge roadblock for them to consider West Virginia?
I think it's probably twofold. One is, for the same reason this has been so hard for our kids, they would send their program into turmoil because of the time of the year, right? And young people, I mean, summer school's already started, and so they're in classes, and that makes it more difficult. And then, on the flip side, basically once Saturday happened, our kids have 30 days to go and see what else. And so having to inherit a roster and build a roster, and you're only going to do 1-year kids or 2-year kids, it makes it more complicated. So there were some people that was a factor that probably would prevent them from having serious discussions. There's probably others who would have still taken the job, but made it clear the timing was. I mean, I don't know if we're the first to do a search this time of the year since there's been NIL and portal and the rule that the portal reopens for 30 days, but we'd have to be one of one or two if there has been any others. Well, Charlotte just did it, and they went through a process pretty similar to ours. They were open for a little over a week and ended up going with an interim.
When you were looking for a head coach, was it looking for an interim always, or were you looking for a permanent solution?
We were doing both. Both. We were running two, which is why we ran a pretty expedited search. I feel like anyway. Normally, kind of 2 to 3 weeks is a lot of times the period, but we were running two searches. We were having to do both of those because had we found the right permanent replacement, timing aside, we'd have probably executed that. But what became clear is as the week went on and we had more and more conversations was just thinking through the logistics of it all. That was going to be tough, and so that's when we started running kind of two parallel tracks.
You mentioned believing this is a top 20, top 25 job in general, and talking about the timing. What was maybe your once you learned Coach Huggins has resigned, this job is going to be open, what were your expectations then, and then how did they change? Like, were you at all surprised that, okay, because this is June, that even though it's a top 20 job, this is not going to happen with this situation, or did you maybe think that could be the case going in and expect it?
Yeah, I think I was aware it was going to be challenging from the start. Probably hadn't thought through all the details of all of the challenges, but was aware. I mean, as most of you know, I coached a little bit earlier in my career, so a lot of my closest friends are coaches. And so a couple of them called me and said, hey, just so you know, there are people all over the country trying to get to your kids right now. And I knew that, but to hear that validation from friends in the coaching business, I mean, that's just so it's a different time and place. But I wasn't going to let that in and of itself direct what our process should be. Our fans, our people, this program deserves more than that. And so I felt like we needed to see I joked about during the women's search if there was a J Ride out there for women's basketball that we would have called. Well, there is a J Ride out there for men's basketball. So we have to make calls to candidates and go through a process. The university deserves that.
Wren, I'm not sure if you answered this or not, but with the staff, you talked about Josh being the interim coach, but were any of the other coaches on staff, did they come out and want to be interim coach as well? Were they all and then if they did, what made Josh really stand out? Because you said that you had great conversations, and then you both said that you didn't really know each other well until now.
Yeah. What I would say in terms of other candidates, both internal and external, I always promise confidentiality, and there's only one way that you can do that. So I won't reveal those names. But I will say all of our full-time assistant coaches were told if they would like an opportunity to visit with me, I would visit with them. I think with Josh, it was just Steve and I visited with all of the particular people in that program. It was clear that he had had a lot of role in organizing the program, and so it was clear everybody's respect for him, and the way that he operated with honesty and integrity and trust, and he's right. Like, I talked to him almost every day since this happened. And there were days where I didn't have much of an update for him. I just said, you just need to trust me, and you're going to get a chance to talk to me and let me get through this. And just every day he really impressed us.
Coach Huggins resigned on Saturday, whenever it was. Any financial ties, all financial ties broken, or are there any deals going to be talked about or anything like that?
No, he resigned, and so his employment was over effective that day. There was no severance or anything like that.
Wren, Josh talked about just hearing from different people to kind of give him advice on what happened here. Your situation, as you mentioned, is so unique. Have you had your peers call him, like, just, hey, what was that like? Or, I mean, because you can't really reach out and say, hey, what did you do in this situation? In that community, what have the conversations been like?
I've had probably couple dozen AD friends that have just texted me and said, hey, you guys were dealt a really difficult hand and you played it probably about as good as you could. And some want to gather up kind of after this postmortem like we do a lot of times and just say, hey, walk me through what you were dealing with and processing, because you never know when that could be you. And this is something that we're all dealing with that's fairly new with all of the particular ingredients that went into this one. And so, there has been a lot of very kind texts from colleagues around the country.
Can you share what you might share with them? What you might learn about this?
I think where I got to midweek in terms of just trying to shut out the influences and get through the process, what happens is there was so much turmoil that you want to make sure that all stakeholders feel like they're being heard. And, I always say, in college athletics, you have donors, not owners. And so, but donor, you have to have donors to make it work. And so, and if somebody's given of their time, talent, and treasure, you want them to feel like they have an outlet to express themselves. And then there were people that I wanted to reach out to. I mentioned some of those names earlier together at Vice. But once we got to kind of midweek, I kind of had to shut that down because it was becoming a little bit of distraction. You answer one phone call and there's 3 more that's been made to you. You answer one text and you got 8 in your inbox. And so when I say I turned Do Not Disturb on so I wouldn't be tempted to be distracted, I turned Do Not Disturb on my phone and just tried to focus in and get through the process, because I knew a week was about all we were going to have to get this done. So, and we were kind of working off that timeline.
There's been a lot of love and admiration, respect for Huggins expressed today. So, and you mentioned you'd love to see him healthy. Is there any thought, would you like to see an opportunity where fans could show their appreciation for him, maybe on a game day, or he could go out on a higher note?
Absolutely. We haven't probably got far enough along to discuss the particulars of that, but we have already talked about ways that we could potentially have him back to honor him at some point, and undoubtedly that will happen. And I think that will be a time of celebrating a legacy and remembering the good times together.
Having gone through this process already, if the situation arises in 9 months from now where you have to go out and find a permanent guy, if that comes up, do you feel like this situation has kind of given you maybe a head start towards what that process may be like?
For sure.
In April or
Yeah, and that's why even once we got to midweek and I said we started running parallel tracks, we continue to run parallel tracks because I never saw it as wasted motion or time. It wasn't, one process wasn't delaying the other, and I saw it really as work that we could be invested in into the bank for the future. So, yes, sir.
You mentioned the search firm. Will you just pick up with that again on this next process when that happens, because you do have that time invested? And how much does what they come back to you with, I'm assuming more on the national scene, influence what you're looking at?
I think they're great in helping to, if nothing else, manage all the phone calls. So coaching searches in general, you have candidates reaching out to you, agents reaching out to you, and then their network of friends reaching out to you. So if you name a head coach in Power 5 college basketball, there's a good chance I got a call from them this week recommending somebody. And so search firms are great to just play traffic cop a little bit because it just can be overwhelming. And then they get you good information and real information. And when you talk about fit, they can have those conversations to determine, one of the things I tell every candidate here, if you're a coach who doesn't want to be in the spotlight, don't come here, because there is no option if you're the football or basketball coach at West Virginia University. You're in the spotlight. I mean, I drive, 3 hours from here and stop at a convenience store, and somebody will say, "Welcome to West Virginia." So, there is no hiding in this state from this job. You are on the clock anytime that you're out. And so some people can handle that, but candidly, some can. I mean, you've seen coaches who went from a job where there wasn't a whole lot of attention and spotlight, and they go to one, and all of a sudden they really struggle with it. So those are the kind of things that search firms can help with, because you don't want, as the AD, to be spending time with somebody who clearly can't handle something like that, and they can make those calls and be helping. So it's just they cut a lot of time off the process, because otherwise you're doing that all that entire volume all by yourself. And they have a team of people, and many times they've already vetted some of those candidates and already know those answers.
Who was the firm you used?
Turnkey. Yeah.
The same firm from the women's search, correct?
No, women's was CSA, Collegiate Sports Associate. Turnkey did the search when I was hired.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah, 'cause that sounds
So if you didn't like that hire, you probably didn't like that search firm.
Wren,
I like them. I mean,
Wren, in terms of go ahead.
no, we'll go
Okay,
here and there.
Meeting with players, you said you met with them. How often? Did you individually, as a group? How'd that go?
So I met with them as a team Saturday before the ultimate resolution of that situation, just to kind of tell them where things were at. Then Sunday, Monday, I had Steve Urias meet with everybody in the program, not just the team, everybody in the program individually, and ask them a variety of questions. And then I met individually with some players, maybe midweek, and then Thursday I had another full team meeting, and then the next one we had was Sunday. So you're trying to not get distracted, but they're anxious young guys, and they're hungry for more updates, and so tried to make sure I touch base with them every 2 or 3 days, and also touch base with their coaches every day so that they could know what to tell them too. And Steve, he was great about going over in the building every day just to be visible and be seen, and so that they knew that he was there.
You mentioned with the job, you're always on the clock, and what happened last week was unfortunate. But do you have a plan, I guess, in place to, do you assign coaches drivers, or do you have conversations with coaches that, hey, you have to be more careful in these situations, because then all of a sudden every media outlet, unfortunately, blows it up.
Man, I would hope I wouldn't have to say that right now, but I think you do always try to use these opportunities, whether it's a recruiting violation or some type of NCAA infraction, or anytime there's an issue where something bad resulted from it. You hope that you can use that to learn. And I've printed off newspaper articles before of coaches who've been in trouble for different things, and distribute at the next head coaches meeting. And a lot of times when we know we have a rules education meeting coming up with all of our coaches, I'll send it to compliance and say, hey, we ought to cover this in the next meeting. So those are I think you have to stop and try to use those as examples as best you can.
You mentioned how you're not right now willing to make a decision on the rest of the staff. Is there a timeline for when we will start learning on who's going to be on Josh's staff?
I think that probably is Coach Eiler's timeline. I mean, he has full autonomy now. He and I are going to work together on one, and that's probably some type of senior advisor kind of role if we can find the right person out there, like a former head coach or somebody who can just be there for him to lean on, because it's a hard job. I mean, and I think for everybody who transitions into a head coaching job the first time, they're always shocked at how little it's about coaching. It really is about management and leadership. It's a different job, and so if we can get him surrounded by by a support system to help him, and I think that gives him his best chance for success. But the rest of those will really be up to him to kind of rearrange the deck chairs and make sure he's got people in a place that allows them to be successful. We'll go back here and now come back.
I don't mean to break too far into the conversation between you and Coach Huggins. I totally appreciate the confidentiality of those, but I am curious. I would love to know, did Coach Huggins offer his resignation right away? Did you guys come to a conclusion of that with him? How did that go?
I think probably the way I would leave that is just sticking with the facts of he submitted his resignation.
Thanks.
In terms of what Josh's timeline may be with the rest of the staff, some of the guys on staff, their contracts are obviously coming up here, I think in days, I guess. So, I mean, how much does that play? I mean,
that was one of the things that, on a personal level, as a human being, that really bothered me for those guys. I mean, this happens. They didn't do anything wrong. A lot of times, if we weren't still considering some other different things, might have already had their renewals out to them. But Coach Huggins was looking himself at, did he want to move some deck chairs around? And so we had not done that. And so I just told them early, I said, we will not let anybody's employment end June 30th. Now, I'm not promising you a full year. It may be 60 days. It may be 90 days, and we reassign you or something, depending on how this goes. But I got in front of them early. I believe it was it Sunday? Sunday. And just said, hey, just so everybody knows, that's not going to happen. We would not treat people that way, especially people that have families and kids and that kind of stuff.
You mentioned that there's a lot more that goes into determining a level of success than wins or losses. So how do you determine, I guess, how successful the year ahead is, factoring in all those other things?
Yeah, I think, when we do an evaluation on a coach, I always want to hear from academics. How are they in terms of making sure that the kids do what they're supposed to do academics? If the kids miss a tutoring appointment, how does the head coach react to it? Do they reinforce that? Is it discipline? Do they make excuses or say it's not that important? How are they in terms of pulling all the pieces together? Our nutritionists and our strength coaches and our sports medicine people, are they all kind of triaging and working on things together? That's how you really manage, you evaluate coaches is, do they take all of the pieces that go into recruiting, developing people first and then players, valuing the individual and valuing their growth, do they do all those things well? And some do it well, and some don't do it as well. But most of the time, in my experience, if you're doing those things well, the wins may trail a little bit, but they come. And so it's more of a comprehensive 360 review from every aspect of the program. And do we feel like there's effective leadership and management at a level that would be expected of a top 20 program?
can you share, obviously Josh's contract is gonna be different with this. Can you share his contract details at all, financials or any details or?
It is signed now, so we'll get that out soon. But basically, what we did is a 10-month contract for $1.5 million. Thought we need to be, he would have taken probably whatever we offered. I think the lowest Big 12 salary was around $2 million, and so we wanted to be fair to him. It's going to be a hard job, and we recognize that. So he can't afford some farm equipment if he decides to do that.
Can I ask you one thing off topic entirely? Mac Brown in North Carolina the other day made a statement that within 3 years we'll level see athletes as employees of the universities. Can you see that happening?
Do I think there could be some type of revenue share model or additional benefits? Yes. I think being employees would be pretty problematic. And when every student athlete that I've sat through and walked through what being an employee actually means, realize that it's worse for them. Yes. No, it's a worse situation for them. So I would be surprised if they're ever full employees. But there's a lot of things that we deal with now that would have surprised me 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm definitely not the Nostradamus of college athletics, because I wouldn't have predicted a lot of the things that we're dealing with.
Hey, Wren, speaking of MAC, other MAC gets to hire ahead of your Mountaineer Athletic Club. Just where does that stand right now? Obviously, a lot going on. I know that.
Yeah, it's been paused the last few days, but no, we're making progress on that. We've had some productive conversations. Generally, I'm not somebody who's like, hey, we have to have somebody who's one of us and been here. But I do think somebody who can be a quick study of WVU and West Virginia culture is really important, just because we've had so much turnover in the MAC. And so a lot of relationship equity lost there just with the turnover that's come. And a lot of people having to learn on the fly. So we would like to get that done sooner rather than later. But to be honest, about the time Steve and I were turning our focus to that, we had something else to manage. So
what is that job like? It sounds like, I don't know, it's not like a coach, but you're running a lot of people who have to do different things. Maybe it's like a general manager, or even has that shifted over 3 or 4 years too now?
Yeah, I think leadership in the MAC is a complex role, because one, you have to develop great relationships, because there's certain donors that you've got to be able to see and grow and develop their affinity for the institution and get them to continue to invest and reinvest. Then you're managing a team full of people. And then, when you look at, you have major gifts, and then you have the annual fund part of it. And the annual fund, to a certain degree, is a little more of database management, getting out solicitations, understanding when to get those and the time of the year and the ones that people respond to. And so all of those things are all go into it. So it's a very complex job, and much more complex than it probably was a few years ago. And it requires a certain experience and skill set to be effective doing it.
Before we let Wren go, or any other general athletic department questions? Can you repeat I think you said the salary, right? The year and the terms?
Yeah, 10-month contract, and the total sum is $1.5 million.
Can you repeat everything else you said?
I'd make it up different this time.
Obviously, with you giving Coach Eiler a shot here to win this job, when you look at how you're going to do this, is this you wait till the end of the season before things really kick up, and if you do a national search?
Yeah, I mean, that's why, and you guys probably read the press release. I went kind of above and beyond to set the expectation that we were doing a national search. We made a decision to pause that. We will do it at the completion of the season. Now, he's going to get a shot every day, and this will be great experience for him no matter what happens, right? And so I think he understands that, but I didn't want people speculating every day on, oh, well, that was a good win. Are they going to pull the interim off? Well, he lost that one. No, he's got no shot, and so I felt like it was really important to put out what our expectation is. We could get to a point, I guess, theoretically, where we would reevaluate that, but as of right now, our expectation is that he is fully empowered to coach this season, make all the decisions, lead this team, and at the conclusion of this season, we would do a national search, and he may be a part of that search. But that I thought it was pretty. There was a reason for the emphasis on the clarity there, and I was that way in my conversations with him, and I don't like ambiguity in matters like this. It's a stressful enough job without having that kind of out there.